Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Here we go on a Wednesday night each and every week, talking Buckeyes at 9 o'clock Eastern time. And as an added extra bonus tonight, stick around for my predictions on the 2019 season. They have yet to be determined by me. So this should be a whole lot of fun. They're just going to come pouring out in some fashion. So whoever strikes me as really good about 20 minutes from now, it could be Iowa State. It could be Pitt in the national championship game. I don't know.
I don't think it will be.
For me, any plays I need to make here to make myself look good. If I can pull out of my then maybe I'll look really good about 4 months from now. If you can give me a really good take on somebody that's completely unexpected. Crickets. This is what's wrong with the sport. I love the sport. The play on the field's amazing. The pageantry, the prestige, everything is great about college football, except for, of course, the scheduling, the playoff system. And number 3 would be we all know who's going to make the playoffs, or we've got a pretty good take on about 6 teams. 4 of the 6 are going to make it.
Yeah, the analogy I always use is the free letters you get at the end of Wheel of Fortune, the RSTLNE, that is Clemson and Alabama. And then the extra letters that you get to choose are, the 1 or 2 other spots that you have that can come from the rest of the nation, which would be Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, teams like that, Oklahoma, that, they aren't the guarantees, but they're still pretty good bets. And you can kind of make out the word and you might know which teams you want to put in there. But, it'd be pretty interesting to watch a playoff without Clemson or Alabama. Maybe one day that'll happen, not in the near future, I don't think, though.
It's not going to happen this year with the putrid ACC. I mean, it really is a 2-game season for Clemson in a lot of ways. I mean, it's difficult to get up for 12 games in a season, and strange things can happen. But I mean, it's hardly a challenging schedule on paper, and even the top 25s that have come out have reflected that the ACC is not very deep this year. Credit to Clemson for just lapping the field so much, but just the absolute implosion in Tallahassee, and I don't see that getting much better this year, has really taken the wind out of the sails of the ACC. I mean, I struggle to really come up with a legitimate third team. I mean, when we're saying that Syracuse is the game you have to circle on your schedule, I mean, credit to Dino Babers, but are we in bizarro world? I mean, what the hell's going on?
Yes, Kevin, you're being very kind in considering Syracuse one of those 2 challenging games. Yes, Syracuse, they've done a great job. Dino Babers, exactly what you just stated. Tremendous job in lifting a program down in the dumps to 10-win status. But if you look at those 10 wins, they beat anybody good. NC State, best win. They weren't that good. They lost by 40 points in a bowl game to Texas A&M. So Syracuse bit smoke and mirrors with the record last year at 10-3. They lucked out not facing Will Grier and about 5 NFL players in the bowl game against West Virginia as well. So yes, until Jack Cohn is transferred to some ACC school and can take down Clemson, there seems to be no hope.
Well, and the thing is, Clemson will get the benefit. Well, they can lose a game in the conference play and still be okay because they're defending national champions. They're Clemson. Everybody respects them, so they'll get the benefit of that doubt. But man, that's the conference you should win and win handily, like Florida State back in the 90s, where you go years without losing a conference game.
I look at I've got Nebraska as kind of a sleeper team for me this year. If you're looking for one that's coming off the edge, they're the only team in the AP top 25 that had a losing record last year, 4-8, and we know that they lost 3 or 4 of those games on plays at the end and just malfeasance, just bad luck more than anything. But I think I projected their schedule at something like 11-1, and when you pull it up and look at it, they've got a lot of favorable stuff going on here. At Colorado early, if they can negotiate that, Ohio State, Northwestern at home, Wisconsin and Iowa at home. I mean, my goodness, that's like all their tough games are at home. They could be 11-1.
11-1, Steve.
Well, the schedule's terrible. I mean, what can I do? I mean, they're going to lose at home. I mean, they're just as good as those other teams playing it at home. Maybe they lose one, but they don't go on the road and play anybody difficult. So
I'm going to play devil's advocate with myself and back you up, Steve. So besides the Ohio State game at home, they got Maryland and Indiana. So they miss all the other Big Ten Eastern Division
yes,
clout.
bad crossovers.
Yep.
Besides Ohio State, which is at home.
Somebody was talking about the Alabama schedule. Their non-conference gauntlet is Duke, New Mexico State, and Western Carolina. And then they also try to talk about Florida, but Florida is nowhere to be seen on that schedule. And Florida is allergic to offense. I mean, wake me when they can score points. I think that they are probably the biggest sham in the top 10 right now. I mean, even more so than Notre Dame or anybody. Let's see it on the field. But I think that their ranking is all sizzle. I mean, I don't think there's anything to it.
So it's been a decade now that Alabama has benefited from having Tennessee as their non-division rival designated team that they play every year. Butch Jones had 2 decent years at 9-4, but otherwise it's been a cakewalk for a decade plus since 2007. And then the other one rotates since they only play 8 conference games. So this year it's South Carolina, who's a top 40-ish kind of team. So Alabama, there's no Georgia, there's no Florida. Kentucky was really good last year, probably not so much this year. A lot of people like Missouri, but Alabama's not going to see any of those teams. And as their huge marquee matchup is, as you mentioned, Kevin, the Duke Blue Devils.
Sisters of the Poor.
Hey, but that's a neutral site game. Anything can happen in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
And it was Louisville last year who went.
You just don't know. I mean, they don't play a game that's not within 3 blocks of a Waffle House at any point of the season. They just never do. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, everybody wants to talk about this. Travel, play somebody for God's sake. It's ridiculous.
Hey, they are in another few years. They're going to be doing more home and homes.
They are.
When Nick Saban retires.
Yeah, they're going to be traveling a little bit. So.
Well, as Tony said, let's see if we get to the schedule when it comes to Ohio State playing Notre Dame and Texas or whatever in the same season. We'll see if those games ride. I mean, I'm skeptical at this point. I mean, at least give some credit to LSU. LSU went up to Lambeau to go play Wisconsin. I mean, you are seeing some SEC teams do that, but not Alabama today. They're not. They're protecting a brand.
You were seeing that SEC school do it, Kevin. Nobody else does it. Penn State hosted Alabama like in 2010, 2011. They had a home and home when Penn State was really down. State, they're not traveling anywhere. I looked this up. I wanted to see the last time the Florida Gators had traveled outside the state of Florida for a non-conference game. 1989. Last time they were outside the state for a non-conference game. They went to Syracuse and lost. So
they play Florida State every year, so they get credit for that. Although Florida State's not any good now, but year in and year out, that's typically a top 15, top 20 game.
Okay, but they still don't leave the state of Florida. It doesn't change the fact that they're not, okay, keeping Florida dollars in Florida. Is that what it is? I get it. Ohio State has the one game where the Miami of Ohio's and the Kent States and the Toledos and the Akrons, and that's fine. But, you can't sit there and do that and then play the Western Carolina Citadels and Tuscaloosa Broadcasting School and sit there and try and say that you're playing the best schedule that's out there. And before I really get on a downhill roll, and this is still once again being based on leagues not playing equal amounts of conference games and everything else. I mean, once again, it just goes to show how poor uniformity is in terms of scheduling, and I don't think we're getting any closer to it. And until we see Division I break again in terms of cost of attendance and things like that, and 64 teams pull out and create their own thing, we're never going to have any true sanity in terms of scheduling.
Clemson alum 98, I love you, but do they honestly believe their joke conference, meaning the Big Ten of the 1950s, has anyone in the South concerned? Well, let's understand that there is one conference in America that matches the SEC when it comes to eyeballs on the ratings in television, rear ends in the seats, money, revenue, actually eclipsed the SEC over the last 2 years in revenue. So that would be the Big Ten. And these two conferences match up in bowl games that are set designated bowl games, namely the Citrus Bowl, what used to be the Capital One Bowl, the Gator Bowl, and the Outback Bowl. And the Big Ten has been the one conference in America of the other four that's matched up quite favorably. Not saying that they win 50%, but it's very close to 50-50 through the years in those matchups. So, yes, it's not a joke.
Let me know when Wake and NC State are playing each other on Raycom 6.
So to that point, Kevin, I'll play you off on that one.
Jefferson Pilot 7.
My guy DeAndre, he's a big Clemson ACC guy, and he argues with me about the Big Ten slow and the Big Ten's this and that. Well, the Big Ten played the ACC 6 times last year in like-seeded games. So we're not talking about Ohio State playing North Carolina. We're talking about like-seeded games, and the Big Ten won 5 of 6. Even the likes of Minnesota, who could only manage a 3-6 record in the Big Ten, goes and beats a 5-3 team in Georgia Tech out of the ACC by 24 points in a bowl game. This repeated itself over and over. 5 out of 6 is pretty substantial.
I can't believe the Big Ten is slow is still a thing. I thought that would put you rest a long time ago, and I guess the way society is now today, when you see everything that's on Twitter and online, people do believe anything and everything, and I guess we'll never be rid of the Big Ten being slow, no matter how often the NFL draft and the 40-yard dash disproves that.